In this action-packed video, I'm going to share a highlight reel of my castle dash. During our visit to Northumberland, I had a goal to visit as many castles as I could in 2 short days. We couldn't get to Lindisfarne, so that was a miss. But here is a recap of the 7 castles we tracked down in 2 days of driving Northumberland. Obviously, these will not be detailed castle tours. If you want full castle tours, I recommend you visit my friend's YouTube channel, Maysam Adventures, where they have lots of tours inside castles across Britain. Stay tuned for a tour of the most bizarre castle we visited at the end of this video, and then after it, a bonus discovery that is not a castle, just a curious ruin we happened upon with the most amazing name. The best part of the video will be Ian's lovely drone photography, which you are seeing a sneak preview of in this clip. Fun fact about the county of Northumberland, the county in England that is farthest north and borders Scotland. It has more castles than any other county in England. So it was the best place for us to attempt this crazy endeavor. The goal for today is to see as many castles as possible. Let's see how many I can cram into one day. We begin our castle dash early in the morning in the town of Warkworth. Please note that I'll be sharing our overall vlog of the countrysides and towns of Northumberland in next Friday's video, because today's video is all about castles. I'm standing here in front of Warkworth Castle, which doesn't open for a couple hours. We're here really early, and we haven't pre-booked tickets, so we're not going inside, but we're hoping to just see a lot of castles, perhaps from the outside today. Warkworth Castle has been around since about 1200. During the late Middle Ages, it was a beloved residence of the prominent Northumbrian landowners, the Percy family. More about them later when we visit Alnwick Castle. Warkworth and other nearby castles played an important role in the battles between England and Scotland, which lasted for centuries. Warkworth was also involved in the War of the Roses, when the castle went from being a Lancastrian residence to a Yorkist headquarters, which led sieges at Alnwick and Bamburgh. Around 1470, Henry Percy, the 4th Earl of Northumberland, started remodeling the castle, including adding the heraldic decoration on the Lion Tower. In 1648, the castle was occupied by parliamentarian forces in the Civil War, and in the next 100 years, the castle was dismantled and demolished in various phases, until a restoration project was commenced in the 1800s by the 4th Duke of Northumberland, Algernon Percy. Currently, Warkworth is owned and managed by English Heritage. Well, I made it to Bamburgh Castle, and this place is so beautiful. The beach, the town, and the castle is just a stunning, huge castle, which is of course why they chose it as a filming location for Indiana Jones, which is why the castle is closed. So can't go on the castle property, but it's nice to just be able to have a little look at it from afar. I do love a castle by the sea, and Bamburgh is a fine specimen of that. Bamburgh is the oldest castle in Northumberland. It has stood guard on this bit of coastline for over 1,400 years. It is also among the largest inhabited castles in the UK. Bamburgh was first established as a royal capital in the 6th century. It was the site of many battles, including a vicious Viking attack in 993. The keep was built about 100 years later when William Rufus, son of William the Conqueror, made the castle a strategic English outpost for warring forays into Scotland. One thing Bamburgh is known for is being the first English castle to fall by cannon fire, which happened in 1464 during the War of the Roses, when 3 massive cannons fired on the castle and the Lancastrians surrendered. In the 1600s, the castle was passed from the crown to private ownership. And do you remember Lord William Armstrong, owner of the gorgeous Cragside estate in my video from a couple weeks back? Well, he purchased Bamburgh Castle in 1894 for a mere £60,000, intent on remodeling the giant castle to make a convalescent home for retired gentlemen. Unfortunately, he died in 1900 before he was able to complete his planned renovations, but the castle remains owned by members of the Armstrong family today. Bamburgh has been a filming location for many, many films and TV shows, including the 1949 film A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, Macbeth, Mary Queen of Scots, Elizabeth, and the upcoming Indiana Jones movie, which is due out next year. And can I just mention, I'm well and truly chuffed that it is so sunny and gorgeous on our visit to Bamburgh. Alnwick is noteworthy because it has been home to the Percy family for over 700 years. It is the second largest inhabited castle in Britain, with Windsor being the biggest. It is a beautiful castle in a lovely part of the English countryside, and because of its size and very well-preserved condition, it is not only much loved by tourists and visitors, but it is also a very popular filming location. It has been featured in Downton Abbey, appeared in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and was featured as Hogwarts in 2 Harry Potter films. Specifically, the walled castle grounds were the location of Quidditch lessons and matches. This is just lucky that on the day I stopped by the Alnwick Castle, I happened to be wearing my Quidditch shirt. Some of these castles, like Alnwick and Bamburgh, are quite famous. Others are a bit more obscure. If anyone watching this video has personally visited all 8 of the places featured in this video, I'd love to hear from you. Alnwick Castle is a super popular tourist destination for a lot of reasons. It's a very castle-y looking castle. We have visited Alnwick Castle years ago with our sons when they were young, during our Harry Potter craze. So today, I won't be going inside, just showing you a few scenes from the outside. Here's another reason I'm not going inside today. It's closed. So I found out the reason why Alnwick Castle is closed for the next 3 days. They are filming Dungeons and Dragons here. At the end of our stay in Alnwick, I was feeling a bit peckish, so before leaving Alnwick, I was able to talk Ian into stopping at a bakery, where I continued my quest to eat as many kinds of flapjacks as possible over the summer. This one had lovely fruits and seeds and bits of chocolate, so I had to snap a cheeky photo for Instagram against the castle wall. I love when spontaneous travel adventures happen. You're just going along, minding your own business, doing something, and then you see something cool and say, what's that? Let's check that out. So we were driving to Alnwick Castle, and from the road we were on, we could see some kind of a ruin off in the distance, and Ian said, we should see what that is. So we are now coming to see another castle. This is the churchyard at Edlingham, and I'll be sharing a peek inside the church during next Friday's video. From the churchyard, you can see the remote castle ruin behind it and the lovely bridge beyond that. This is a really lovely little walk from the church down to the castle ruin. Edlingham Castle is actually a very interesting ruin. It is not truly a classic example of a castle. It was actually a manor home that was fortified with defenses to protect from the border reivers in the 14th and 15th century. For a few hundred years, homes were attacked along the Anglo-Saxon border, and landowners would build fortresses to protect their families, homes, and possessions during these raids. The most noteworthy part of this fortified manor house is the tall solar tower, which was constructed in the mid-1300s. This allowed the family to live more comfortably and be better protected. Sadly, the home was abandoned in the mid-1600s, and many of the stones were removed to construct other buildings. I was surprised to learn that the site was only recently excavated in the late 1970s. It is currently managed by English Heritage. That tower is looking a little unstable. I'm glad to see there are some metal reinforcements in there to keep that tower from toppling over on someone as they walk next to it. You see just bits of arches or columns, and it makes you wonder what this fortification looked like back in its day. The old fireplace. Fort and Etal are two fascinating little farming villages in a combined estate, which is a historical tourist destination. It has been owned and managed by the Joycey family for about 100 years. I'll show you around the villages in a bit more detail in next Friday's video, but today let's just take a quick look at the castles located in each of these villages. Here in Ford, the castle has a very imposing front gate. It is not open to the public, so I couldn't go inside, but there was a lovely view of the castle from the gateway. I know some viewers of this video have had the opportunity to stay at the castle, so they will have to comment below and tell us all about it. The castle at Ford was built in the 1100s and was involved in the Battle of Flodden Field in 1513, a clash in which King James IV of Scotland died, the last British monarch to die in battle. We have totally run out of time, so I cannot go visit Etal Castle, but I will try and shoot a quick little bit of video. Etal Castle was built in the 1300s and fell into ruin in the late 1500s. This whole area near the Scottish border became much more peaceful once England and Scotland were united in 1707. Entering Chillingham Castle. Quite the entry. Chillingham is probably the craziest castle I have ever visited. It is a very eclectic place, as you will soon discover. For starters, the castle is marketed as the most haunted castle in Britain, a claim which you would probably have trouble fact-checking to confirm. Here's our little rental car. And here is where we parked by Chillingham Castle. And there's all these odds and ends from the garden. And this huge iron gate, which is also very fascinating.
So we are visiting a castle today that very few Americans ever see.
That's what Ian thinks. So if you're American and you've been here, please let us know that Ian's wrong. We're out in the gardens of Chillingham. And there is just an explosion of rhododendron. This is not your typical castle tour. We aren't going to wander stately bedrooms and lavish ballrooms and stuffy libraries lined with perfectly polished books. Instead, we are going to begin by visiting the Torture Museum, which is called Chilling Dungeon. Be warned that this subject matter for the next few seconds is not suitable for squeamish or very young viewers. You can skip ahead to the next chapter if you don't want to see this bit. At the entrance to the torture exhibit is this cheery yet sexist warning, which cautions that because the chilling dungeons contain torture instruments and life-sized replicas of tortured bodies and is designed to cause maximum shock to its visitors, they advise people with nervous dispositions or women with children not to enter. Before we see the life-sized figures, we get to see these charming illustrations of various ways people were tortured to death, like being crushed with a lead weight, beheaded with a sword, death by rocks, burning at the stake, being roasted and broiled. Pretty gruesome stuff. So let's go see the torture tools, including various ways to stretch and confine and drown and burn and cause immense pain to people. Okay, that's enough of the nastiness. Let's see if this castle has any pleasant castle-y kind of stuff in it. Here is the Great Hall, a room which was used as a filming location for the movie Elizabeth. Chillingham Castle is currently owned by Sir Humphrey Wakefield and his wife Catherine, and she is a descendant of the Grey family who have owned Chillingham since the 15th century. Going back as far as the 12th century, Chillingham was originally a monastery. In 1298, King Edward I stayed at the castle on his way to battle William Wallace in Scotland. This drawing room was originally built in 1615 for a state visit from King James I of England, who was also known as James V of Scotland. He stayed in the castle on a journey between his two kingdoms. Not long afterwards, the conflict between England and Scotland calmed as the two crowns were unified. The castle was transformed from a crenellated fortification with a grand moat to be more of a stately manor home. The current owners have carefully tried to restore the room back to its King James I state. And here in the family dining room, just a couple steps from the dining table, is a Victorian toilet, which apparently still works. And of course, a wagon wheel chandelier above it, because why not? A most curious little water closet indeed. And speaking of curious, wait till you see that chapel. I bet that's the baptismal font right there.
It looks like it's worn down from years and years and years of use.
Centuries, yes. This is a very curious little chapel. Not your typical manor house chapel, but this is not your typical manor house. It's a very eccentric castle. This looks a bit like my wedding dress. This large room was honestly just a mishmash of rather weird and random collections of stuff. At this point in the tour, I was deciding that the owner really is a bit of an eccentric hoarder. But keep in mind, I am a minimalist, so all this clutter kind of made me crazy. And here is the tea room below. These are the largest antlers I've ever seen. We are taking the woodland walk back to the car park. I'm going to shut up so you can hear the birds. As we were driving to meet some friends for dinner, we randomly drove by this ruin, which was just off the road. It didn't have any signage or car park or even a road accessing it. But Ian kindly pulled over on the shoulder so I could snap a few photos. I wished I had had time to put on my boots and go have a closer look, but we were going to be late for dinner. And honestly, I was concerned it might be on private property. So we drove off with just a few photos. But with the help of Google Maps, I discovered it is a place called Codger Fort. That is a bloomin' brilliant name, if you ask me. A chap named Sir Walter Blackett built it on his Wallington estate in the mid-1700s. It was either a fortification during the Jacobite Rebellion or just a folly. I'm not sure which, but either way, it's a really cool ruin and a fun discovery on a random drive along a country road in Northumbria. I hope you enjoyed our video of mini castles. Thanks so much for watching, and do something good in the world today.